How much did you make?
The most I ever made was 8.8 in one night.
Oh, what?
I made 8.8 million the second time I fought Anderson.
It pays, boy. This is huge money. That's a stunning payout for a UFC fighter now.
Yes.
This is how long ago?
This was in 2012.
What did Silva get?
I've always wondered that. He had to get more.
No.
What a week for the fight world. Two huge matchups have just been locked in. Anderson Silva is set to pocket a jaw-dropping $10.3 million, and Rampage Jackson has revealed something about his own son that left fans stunned. Stick around, because each twist in this story is wilder than the last. When it comes to money in MMA, fighters are always talking about how little they get paid compared to the damage they take. But now, thanks to the UFC's giant antitrust settlement, the numbers are finally in, and one legend is walking away with a payday so massive, it doesn't even sound real. According to reports, Anderson Silva is set to receive a staggering $10.3 million from the settlement. To put that in perspective, the average payout for fighters in this case is around $231,000. Not bad at all, but still nowhere near Silva's figure. The median payout sits closer to $86,000, and the lowest payment just over $16,000. That's the kind of gap that makes fans stop and ask why the huge difference. Here's how it worked. Fighters who were part of the lawsuit were awarded 32.7% of the money they earned during the class period, plus an extra flat fee of about $14,000 for every fight they had. That formula led to Silva's jaw-dropping total, a reward for his long career in high-profile bouts.
When we first paid him, I think he wanted $25,000 and 3 goats.
Did you come up with a male or female?
Goats?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question, but he got 25,000 and 3 goats. That was the first, Dumpling from Siberia, the guy who got me into this, became the world champion here in Saudi Arabia.
But while some fans celebrated Silva finally getting his due, others were quick to point out how many fighters who bled and sweated under the same company will see only a tiny fraction of that amount. The settlement might have been meant to even things out, but in reality, it exposed just how massive the pay gap in MMA really island. Still, for Silva, this is another chapter in an already legendary career. He's known as one of the greatest fighters of all time, the man who dominated the middleweight division and gave fans highlight reel moments they'll never forget. Now, years after his prime, he's cashing in big. But money stories are only the beginning this week, because while Silva's bank account is exploding, another fighter is preparing in a way that has fans shaking their heads and laughing at the same time. While Anderson Silva's bank account is making headlines, another fighter is grabbing attention for a completely different reason, and honestly, it might be one of the weirdest training stories you'll hear all year.
And obviously, we saw the video clip online of, Corey Sandhagen coming up and congratulating you and shaking your hand. So is that the guy that you want? And if so, what do you make of him as an opponent?
Yes, top of my head, he's the best deserving guy in this division right now. Especially he was fighting always the best of the best. He was company guy.
Corey Sandhagen, ahead of his UFC 320 fight against the relentless Merab Dvalishvili, has been trying to find sparring partners who can actually mimic Merab's chaotic, non-stop style. But instead of just hiring regular training partners, Corey decided to make it fun and maybe a little crazy. In a YouTube video, Sandhagen put together what can only be described as a casting call for sparring partners. The requirements? They had to be willing to dive headfirst into a frozen lake, throw 30 takedowns in a row, and maybe even sprint randomly around the gym just to keep the energy wild. And if that wasn't bizarre enough, he even tested them with random questions, like whether they knew the difference between frozen and regular water, or how loud they could scream. The whole thing felt half like a comedy skit, half like real fight prep. But here's the thing, it perfectly shows how difficult Merab is to prepare for.
Hey, let's be real. O'Malley has no business fighting Merab for an immediate rematch. He got beat up in the first fight. He's going to get beat up in the second fight. No one wants to see that fight. I'm not booked yet. I want to fight. I am so damn bored. I'll even give this fool as much time as he wants, the way that Aljamain gave him as much time as he wants.
The guy doesn't just fight like a machine in the cage, he brings that same unpredictable energy outside of it too. For Sandhagen, this was more than just a laugh. It was a reminder of how much pressure he's under. Facing a fighter like Merab isn't just about skill, it's about surviving a storm that never stops. If you can't find a way to match that pace, it could be a long night in the octagon. Fans who watched the video couldn't decide whether Sandhagen was being a genius or just trolling everyone. Either way, it kept people talking, and it added another layer of hype to an already fascinating matchup. But while Corey's preparing with humor and frozen lakes, another veteran of the fight game is looking at the sport from a much darker angle, and possibly saying goodbye for good. While Corey Sandhagen is keeping things lighthearted with frozen lakes and chaos drills, Luke Rockhold is standing at a very different crossroads in his career, one that may mark the end of his fighting days.
Thank you for taking this my opportunity here and giving me a chance against a great former world champion competitor. Thank you.
Your opportunity and giving you a chance. Isn't that fucking
giving me an
backwards
opportunity?
fuck?
Whatever, man. You're not good with words.
At Misfits Boxing 22, Rockhold faced Darren Till in a bout that didn't go his way. The result? A brutal knockout loss that had fans immediately questioning whether the former UFC and Strikeforce champion had reached the end of the road. For a fighter who once held gold at the highest level, seeing him on the canvas again was tough for longtime supporters. After the fight, Rockhold took to social media with a cryptic post. "It's time to work on my golf swing." Simple words, but they carried heavy meaning. Was this his way of saying goodbye to fighting? Or was it just a moment of frustration? When pressed about it later on Ariel Helwani's show, Rockhold didn't give a clear answer. He admitted he's 40 years old now, and taking shots like the one Till landed isn't something he can keep risking. He spoke about wanting a future, about building life beyond the cage, and about already achieving more than most fighters ever dream of.
Champion of the world, Luke Rockhold, and what an amazing display of heart and courage.
This wasn't just a fighter licking his wounds, it sounded like a man reflecting on his entire journey. From world championships to trying karate combat, bare knuckle fights, and even high-level jiu-jitsu, Rockhold has tested himself in every combat arena. He's fought killers in every discipline and proved he could hang with the best. But as he said himself, there's not much left to do. Still, Rockhold being Rockhold, he didn't leave it at that. Instead of just quietly hinting at retirement, he turned his fire toward the people he felt wronged him in his final fights, and his words lit up the fight community. Because if Rockhold is done, he's not leaving quietly, he's leaving swinging. Luke Rockhold may be hinting at retirement, but if he really is walking away, he's making sure his voice is heard on the way out, and his latest comments lit a fire under the bare-knuckle boxing world.
Well, what can I say? You can check bare knuckle off the list. Some crazy shit. Those little knuckles got me. Square on the front, too. Maybe a beard. Maybe a better mouthpiece.
During his interview, Rockhold took direct aim at BKFC president David Feldman. Feldman had suggested that Rockhold quit in his fight against Mike Perry, and Luke wasn't having any of it. In classic Rockhold fashion, he fired back hard, saying Feldman tried to manipulate weight to favor Perry, calling him a slimy promoter who shouldn't even be talking about fighting. That wasn't just criticism, it was venom. But Rockhold didn't stop there. He doubled down on his disgust for bare-knuckle boxing as a whole. In his words, it's a dumb man's sport, nothing but fighters running forward, throwing wild punches, and smashing into each other inside a metal ring that bounces you right back into the chaos. To Rockhold, it's the opposite of technical fighting, a spectacle with little skill and no longevity. He painted a picture of a sport built on damage, not discipline. Of course, those comments didn't sit well with everyone. Former UFC fighter and BKFC competitor Hector Lombard quickly jumped in with a fiery response on Instagram. Lombard, who's had success in bare knuckle, told Rockhold he should be ashamed. He pointed out that Rockhold was a champion in multiple organizations and yet still sounded bitter. Lombard reminded fans that every combat sport has value, whether it's boxing, MMA, or BKFC, and blasted Rockhold for tearing others down just because he didn't succeed there. His message was clear: stop complaining, respect the grind, and move on. Fans quickly split into sides. Some agreed with Rockhold, saying bare knuckle is reckless and dangerous. Others stood with Lombard, insisting that combat sports in all forms deserve respect, and that Rockhold sounded like he was making excuses. But whether you see Rockhold as brutally honest or just bitter, one thing's for sure, his words stirred the pot and kept his name trending. And speaking of trending, Rampage Jackson just revealed something about his own family that has everyone talking. If Rockhold's war of words wasn't enough drama, Rampage Jackson just dropped a revelation that shocked fans on a much deeper, personal level. For the first time since the viral incident involving his son Raja and the fighter known as Psycho Stu, Rampage sat down for a full interview, and what he revealed left the MMA community stunned.
To talk about it, but I'm just keeping 100. I feel bad about what happened to Psycho Stu. I don't condone what my son did at all. Very, very unfortunate. If I was there, things went down, but you know what I'm saying.
Rampage admitted that he's not even speaking to his son right now. That's right, one of the sport's most outspoken legends says Raja has dishonored the Jackson family name with his actions. For Rampage, it wasn't just about the fight gone wrong, but the fact that Raja tried to hide what happened and, in his words, even put his siblings at risk. Fans watching the interview could feel the conflict in his voice. On one hand, he's a father who loves his son. On the other, he's a man who believes respect and accountability come first. He made it clear he hasn't cut Raja off forever, but he needs time. He's disappointed, angry, and trying to figure out how to balance being a parent with holding his son responsible. The pain in Rampage's words was obvious. He admitted he doesn't know the protocol for how long a parent should stop talking to their child in a situation like this. But for now, the silence speaks volumes. The situation has sparked debate across the MMA community. Some fans sympathize with Rampage, saying he's showing tough love and protecting his family's reputation. Others believe this is exactly the moment his son needs him most, and that shutting him out could make things worse. It's one of those rare times when fight fans aren't arguing about wins and losses. They're talking about family, honor, and the blurred lines between a fighter's public life and their private battles. But Rampage didn't stop there. After voicing his disappointment with Raja, he turned his anger towards someone else in the story, and his words made the controversy even messier. As if cutting ties with his son wasn't heavy enough, Rampage Jackson shifted his focus toward another figure in the controversy, the man at the center of the viral incident, Psycho Stu. And Rampage's words showed just how frustrated he really island. According to Rampage, part of the chaos came from Stu himself failing to take responsibility. Rampage explained that after Raja's actions, he was bombarded with hate, threats, and racist messages online. He felt some of that heat could have been cooled if Stu had simply come forward and clarified the situation. In Rampage's eyes, Stu should have admitted that what happened wasn't a sneak attack, that things were staged to some degree, and that Raja didn't just blindside him. But instead, Rampage says Stu stayed quiet, and that silence made everything worse. The way Rampage told it, the whole incident spiraled because no one stepped up to tell the full truth.
Developing tonight, an attack inside an LA wrestling ring. The son of former UFC champion Quentin Rampage Jackson is accused of brutally beating a wrestler.
He even pointed out that Stu hit Raja with a beer can and grabbed him by the neck first, escalating things before the brawl turned ugly. For Rampage, this detail mattered because without it, people only saw Raja as the aggressor, and the Jackson family took the brunt of the backlash. And Rampage didn't mince words. He made it clear that while Raja was the most wrong, others, including Stu, weren't innocent. In fact, he went as far as saying none of this would have happened if Stu hadn't provoked things in the first place. The frustration in his voice painted a picture of a father stuck in the middle of a storm, angry at his son, angry at Stu, and angry at the way the internet spun the whole story into something bigger than it should have been. For fans, it was raw and messy, the kind of behind-the-scenes family drama you rarely hear a legend reveal publicly. But while Rampage was dealing with personal battles, the fight world itself was moving forward, and the next headlines brought excitement instead of controversy. Because two massive fights have just been announced, and both have fans buzzing. After all the drama and emotional revelations, the fight world finally got a dose of pure excitement because two massive matchups were just made official. And both have the potential to steal the spotlight at the end of the year. First up is Bo Nickal. Once considered one of the fastest rising prospects in MMA, Nickal recently suffered the first loss of his career, a moment that left fans questioning if the hype train had slowed down. But now, he's back, and the UFC isn't giving him an easy road. On the 15th of November at UFC 322-inch New York, Nickal will face Ralph Wire, a 5-time Jiu-Jitsu world champion. On paper, it's a dream matchup for grappling fans, a 3-time NCAA Division I wrestling champion colliding with one of the best submission artists in the world. For Nickal, it's redemption. For Fourier, it's a chance to prove Jiu-Jitsu can still dominate the wrestling-heavy world of MMA. But that's not the only fight making noise. Paulo Costa has also confirmed he'll be stepping into the octagon against the flashy striker Shara Bullet Magomedov. Costa revealed on social media that he was offered the fight and immediately said yes. And in classic Costa fashion, he didn't stop at just accepting, he went straight into trolling mode, posting photos mocking Shara, joking about eye pokes, and warning fans to keep your eyes open.
I have some unfinished business in my thoughts, you know. Of course, I want revenge. Yeah, but it's not my number one in my list to achievements, you know.
Costa turned what could have been a standard fight announcement into full-blown entertainment. Fans are eating it up. Costa's humor, combined with Shara's unorthodox fighting style, already has people predicting fireworks. Between Nickal's high-stakes return and Costa's chaotic energy, UFC 322 is shaping up to be a card fans won't want to miss. But before we wrap things up, it wasn't just the fighters making headlines. The fans themselves had plenty to say, and they turned the week's chaos into comedy gold. With all the headlines, Silva's massive payout, Rampage's family drama, Rockhold's fiery words, and the new fight announcements, it didn't take long for fans to do what they do best: turn the chaos into memes. Across social media, fight fans started posting their funniest takes on the week's wildest stories, and some of them absolutely brutal. One meme showed Anderson Silva sitting on a throne made of dollar bills, holding a giant check with the caption, "When you're the spider, but also the banker." It perfectly summed up the disbelief over his record-setting $10.3 million payout. Fans couldn't get enough of comparing Silva's haul to the smaller checks other fighters will be receiving. Another viral meme targeted Corey Sandhagen's bizarre training camp. It showed a group of random people jumping into a frozen lake with the words, "New job opening, Marab stunt doubles." It was part joke, part reality, because honestly, who else trains like that? And then came the Rampage meme. Some fans used old photos of Rampage yelling in interviews, captioning them with lines like, "Don't talk to me or my son ever again." Others showed him looking serious with the words, "Family meetings," Jackson style. It may have been lighthearted, but it showed how invested fans were in a very personal story. Even Paulo Costa got dragged into the mix, which shouldn't surprise anyone. Fans jumped on his trolling energy, making memes about eye pokes, Shera's flashy style, and Costa's non-stop Twitter antics. For many, the fight hasn't even started yet, but the online battle is already underway. That's the thing about MMA, it's not just about what happens in the cage. It's about the stories, the personalities, and yes, even the memes that keep fans buzzing long after the fights are over. And after a week like this, the internet had endless material. But beyond the laughs, this week showed something important. MMA is as much about the drama outside the cage as it is about the wars inside of it. What a wild week, from Anderson Silva's record-breaking $10.3 million payday, to Rampage Jackson revealing he's not even speaking to his own son, to Luke Rockhold lighting up BKFC, and two massive fights getting announced. The MMA world never stops delivering drama. These stories prove it's never just about the punches and kicks inside the cage. The real shockwaves often come from what happens outside of it, the money, the rivalries, the personal struggles, and the unexpected twists that keep fans glued to every update. And if this week is any sign, the fight game is only going to get crazier from here. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to stay ahead of the latest MMA desk news, rumors, and fight announcements, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story.